every once in a while, a week comes along and I'll glance over what are the planets saying to each other during this particular week. And my first impression when I looked at this week was, there's not much going on. At which point, the serpent of life, an energy being sailing through the heavens, swoops in amongst all the planetary beings and says, Jeff, surely you can see that there are things afoot. And, it is true. There are always, conversations underway that these planetary beings are having with one another. And as I was writing down on my script, we shall call it, for the planetary dance figures that were, engaging with one another this week, I came up with, stuff on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because those were the main planetary signatures that, intrigued me, shall we say. The conversations that they had were not something that I could just say, yeah, well, so what? So, as we go through the week, there are, there's squares that are forming, trines that are forming, and it's kind of like, well, even they, which I could spend, plenty of time talking about, don't intrigue me. I don't think that, the necessity of delving into them too heavily is really where we want to go this week. I mean, we begin the week with the moon just finishing up its cycle in Aquarius. And so the moon basically this week is going to go from Aquarius down here to Pisces. Taurus, excuse me. And form its first square, which doesn't really happen until Saturday, the 28th. On my birthday, by the way. Crisis in consciousness, first square of the moon. So let's just zip through these planetary dance moves of this week. You can kind of see the moon just skittling along here. We're already up to Thursday here right now. And Friday, the first thing that comes of interest is Venus here, moving into Pisces. In traditional forms of astrology, Venus in Pisces has been given the title of exalted. Now, what the heck does exalted mean? Well, we can all have ideas of what an exaltation is. It's basically being given, some panache, a certain elevation of importance and significance. This is exaltation. So why would Venus going into Pisces have this capacity? But maybe even more important than that is, what might be the significance of that Venus dance through the realm of Pisces? So let's look at Venus. I'm going to read you a short little excerpt from a friend of mine, Kelly Lee Phipps, on Venus. aesthetic sense, art, beauty, affection, love. Venus represents your ability to form relationships. It shows how and what you're attracted to. In its orbit, Venus occupies a unique position between the Earth and the solar core, plus Mercury perception. As such, all thought waves coming to or emanating from the heart must pass through Venus's artistic domain, where Mercury's perception organizes and creates images out of life experience. Venus weaves those images together, creating cosmic art. The Venus love energy center impels you to feel connected to the universe, to experiences of people, places, and things. So if we take that context of the Venusian energy, drop it into the realm of Pisces, which for all intents and purposes has to do with how connected we are to Source and what Source signifies to each of us. While not necessarily the same, has an underpinning of vortex of energy that, for all intents and purposes, can be more inclusive than anything else. After all, Source, a foundation for everything. Yeah, the Piscean realm is not a realm easily grasped onto with mental conditioning that our human endeavors attempt to portray as overtly significant, perhaps even sometimes above all else. Whereas when we're talking Source, we're talking heart. We're not talking that mental, mercurial, solar kind of an experience. We're talking about a connection to an aspect of our being, the heart, which, believe it or not, actually portends a deeper connection to the life experience than anything we might think up with our mind. There's a lot of ways I could spin that, but I don't want to confuse you deliberately with archetypal avenues that I have been exploring for, I think probably this particular incarnation that I'm on. But let's just spin that Venusian energy through the avenues of as relationship to people, places, and things, and as a vehicle for inspiring artistic expression. When we mix that into the Piscean level of uh, unlimited capabilities of energetic fusion that are possible when we connect or attempt to connect with what's exactly Source might portray for, no, not this head, but our heart, an energy core that is, ironically enough, hundreds of times more potent than our brain could ever fathom. So, Venus, seeking to engender a process of connection with others, actually with everything, here in the realm of basically a connection to everything. I don't know if I'm going to just put it out there. While Venus is in Pisces, our capacities for the field of relationship, if we're really paying attention, can have the ability to recognize that we are related to everything, not just Joe down the street or Robin across the waters. There's an energy pulse that is present in the Piscean realm that attempts to invite us to dive much deeper into the experience of life at levels that, we don't generally encounter in our everyday experiences. So Venus in Pisces is an invitation to expand, if you will, the potentials that lie within any relationship that we participate in, to not try and, off the cuff, sleight of hand, try to play a game with it. Because Venus in Pisces is tuning into the game of life that says the importance, the significance that you in your relationship factors have come to this planet to grow in ways that easily surpass many of the machinations that everyday life might incline you to lean toward, for lack of an awareness that generally is not shared in our everyday experiences about that connection to Source. And Source is, we find it in ourselves, but as we interact with other people, places, and things, that same essence or relevance of Source is present in everything. Can you feel that? I think of the fact that this particular lunar cycle we're in, of beginning at 1 degree Aquarius, the moon, how we feel in that Aquarian kind of innovating energy that is saying, how can I facilitate something that is new in all the experiences that I participate in, and I want to feel that, with everything that I have. That moon is beckoning this participation at a level that, probably, I just on the off chance, in case you hadn't run into this particular tidbit of information, is that the moon right now is as close to the Earth, or closer to the Earth, than it's been in 992 years in its orbit. It's close to the Earth, so that lunar sensate capacity to feel is closer to the surface. The draw, the pull of our feeling energy is, it's heightened. And, this is something to definitely put into into your early morning smoothies, if you will, to grasp how, while my feelings are heightened, can I tune into that feeling experience of all of life. So Venus on Friday this week going into Pisces there's an invitation there. Don't think small. Don't belittle yourself or others for that matter, because in doing so, you actually belittle yourself, because I am a part of you, and anything I do to you, I do to myself. There are versions of that particular phrase that you may have run across, but there's truth to that. We are connected on ways beyond what our mind might easily understand. '28th, Saturday, quarter moon. Sun, you see here, is at 8 degrees of Aquarius. Moon is at 8 degrees of Taurus. Exactly. This is at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday here in the West Coast. This is my birthday. Quarter moon. Crisis in consciousness. Well, it's a square that's happening, which in a sense might heighten the experience of crisis, because squares, a 90-degree aspect, these are elements, in this case air, Aquarius, and earth, Taurus, generally are not inclined to see things in the same way. There's a practicality to the Taurian earth sign that wants to make sure that anything that transpires has a practical nature to it. Aquarius, maybe not so much practicality, but at the same time, these are both fixed signs. Means that once a Taurus, an Aquarius, a Scorpio, or a Leo get something stuck in their mind, the drive to accomplish that, it's potent, this is the way I want to do things, and I'm not going to back down. That's fixity. Well, the Aquarius fixity has a little bit more flexibility to just how to play that game, because innovation, as I have mentioned before, is one of the pillars that Aquarius stands on. And sometimes, if things are not working, even though we know with everything in our capacity that this is how it should work out, the Aquarius leaning is to, well, what alternatives might I engender into this circumstance that could spawn a wider perspective that can be shared with others to allow them to perceive that I might not be so far out with what it is that I'm, pushing to accomplish. And in that, from the Aquarian perspective, because Aquarian's about groups, energy, the vitality of having more people on board in any kind of a situation is always on the table. And so, shifting the process of language around in a way to bring people more into the experience of being on that same table, even though we may not entirely agree on everything. There's something within the context of what is being considered that is important to all of us. Each of us has, some investment in making sure that we're doing it together. So this first square of the moon, the waning square, crisis in consciousness, we go back to that new moon at first degree, 1 degree of Aquarius. And we go, when we set our intentions for this particular lunar cycle at that first degree of Aquarius, are we open enough to be inclusive of as many as possible? I didn't read the Sabian symbol for that particular new moon that happened over the weekend. Actually, yesterday, Saturday. Here it is. An unexpected thunderstorm. And the keynote, the need to develop the inner security which will enable us to meet unexpected crises. Since this was basically just yesterday, because I'm doing this on Sunday, the setting of the intentions is still very much on the table for this particular lunar cycle ahead. And so in expanding that thunderstorm energy, and that's, thunderstorms and energy, there's a symbiotic relationship there that, that prickly energy in the air kicks the energy up. And so this particular new moon that happened yesterday, and how we're setting our intentions for this month ahead, there's a lot of, excitement, shall we say, in the air. What is it that innovation is beckoning my participation in as I go through this month? And what might I invent that perhaps hasn't been thought of yet. And now, because of Venus going into Pisces, how inclusive in this inventive experience am I going to be? Because I suspect, this may just be me, but I sense that inclusion of others is going to be extremely helpful in being able to arrange a process for as many as possible to actually work together in ways that perhaps we have not thought of yet. There's my Aquarian coming through again. Can we as a group find commonality in what it is that might transpire to unite us? I'm not going to get into the political thing because the political thing is like, unite with people that have different thoughts than me? Oh my God, not a chance. Anyway, uh, the sun has been forming a trine to Mars. Basically, if we go to Sunday, it's exact. Both of them at 9 degrees of their respective signs. And a trine, these are both air signs. So trine energy means that there's a symbiosis that makes the process function more easily. And for that matter, when things take on that kind of energy, a lot of times it's just kind of like, well, I don't need to, pay too much attention to that because the flow is already there. But let's just back up one slight step here. Who are the players in this celestial dance that are forming this trine? The sun, the core essence of life in our solar system, and Mars, that action energy, drive impulse to do something. So this trine from Aquarius to Gemini is kind of like having a strong tailwind that says that, well, if you're going to go in this direction, the sun is going to blow very hard from behind you to push what? Mercurial, Gemini, thoughts, perceptions, communications driven by this Mars energy to be out there, to not hold back. And what, perchance, do you think might be inspired by that Martian, Gemini, and Aquarius solar energy? How many would be invited into this conversational experience? How inclusive might I be inclined to energize? That's a pretty powerful signature to end up the week on. And since those are the main aspects of this week, I think that there's another trine that's happening between Mercury and Uranus, which, irony of ironies is Uranus is said to be a higher octave of Mercury. And this trine is an Earth trine. So there's a practicality in Mercury, how we think and what we say. And At the same time, that Uranus factor down there in Taurus, while theoretically unpredictable, it is in Taurus after all. So the vitality of that Uranian shakeup kind of energy is still very tuned into the natural world of Taurus. Mother Earth, this support structure upon which we wonder. And so, keeping in mind, Mercury, that Capricornian higher perspective of what is it that draws us together as a meaningful whole. It's this planet that we live on. And don't any of you forget that. It's very, very important, vital to our survival. That's all I got for this week. If I've waxed off errantly into, thoughts, I can only put out what's moving in my heart. These aren't things that have just mentally machinated for me. No, I'm driven by that heart energy. And I invite you all to participate at that level as well. We have an adventure ahead of us. Are you on board? See you all next week. Live long and prosper.